ナ葛藤集第98則援護陶器援護書陶器の芸に曰く金の交渉図金書のとばり消化総理よって助かって帰る少年一段風量の字一人自ら散ることを Entangling Vines Case 98 Engo's Enlightenment verse. In his Enlightenment verse, Engo Kokugon wrote, "The fragrance of the golden duck censer fades in the brocade curtains. Singing to the sound of a flute, I am led home drunk. The deepest refinement of the youth is for the lover alone to know." Today, we are facing a profound question, and I will ask you all. Will you be my Valentine? Oh no, that doesn't sound very full of passion. Will you be my Valentine? Okay. I really can't wait to go out with you. Zen practice is an interesting kind of an animal. It has fierce teeth. It has at times breath that smells like incense, but sometimes it's just awful. Halitosis. Eyes bloodshot. But then it asks you, will you be my Valentine? Will you come and enter into this relationship with this kind of a being that, with claws and all, just wants one thing, truly, it wants to eat you alive. Because if you don't allow yourself to be eaten alive by this Zen beast, you might as well be roadkill of this life. There's plenty of spiritual roadkill out there. Don't become one of those persons run over by their own lives or their own beliefs. Well, I could start right now and say, the Savior has come though. AI. Finally, all our questions are answered in this really, really novel kind of thing, artificial intelligence. LLMs. Large language models. Technologically wonderful to think of, and that it came to it only possible through matching capacity for processing. Lots of electricity being eaten up, lots of space, rack space, better and better processors. And you know what those processors do? They follow a limited set of instructions to manipulate data that we put in, that it has ingested. Now, just following that, if it were a living thing, like the Zen beast ingests you. Sometimes it spits you out. But this AI stuff, it's just eating. And then we get stuff out of it, generative AI. You know, every living being that takes something in also puts stuff out. You know? Living being, there's a word for it. It has 4 letters, right? Here it is, I have never seen shit like this. This is so novel, how it is arranged. And so we can be quite infatuated with it. It is a wonderful thing to help us get away from having to do tedious tasks. But it will never touch where human creativity, human feeling, and human uniqueness exists. As if we needed AI. We have a data center up here that processes a lot of stuff and also generates things that are very difficult for us to tell if, is that real? Is that real? Consciousness creates reality. And then it is our choice to believe it or not. Later in this, with this koan that we have here, I will come back to speaking about content and function. Content and function. Zen practice as being the investigation of how this all works without being completely consumed by the content that this function puts forth. And as far as I'm concerned at this moment, I feel pretty strongly that AI is only content. Only content. Even the functionality that it provides is created from the content that we fed it. So, I can't wait. I can't wait to see what happens. Does anyone know what coprophagia is? Yeah? This is when you eat your own shit. And AI will eventually start ingesting the stuff that it created itself. That can't be healthy. It's like feedback, probably. When you have a microphone and the speaker, you know, you get too close, you get the feedback. Something like that will happen. Let's see what it is before it takes over government. We don't need any of that. This is naturally fraud. All right. Dear Valentines, when Engo Kokugon Zenji, who lived from 1063 to 1135, had his awakening, he wrote a verse. And a verse that goes back, of course, to the Chinese literary tradition, to express, to give a gist of what his life had opened up to. And this koan speaks about this verse from Engo. So Engo was born in today's Sichuan province, and his family name was Luo. His family was, of course, like most families at that time, deeply into Confucianism. Remember, Confucius taught at the same time the historical Buddha taught. He read some Buddhist scriptures, which he discovered when he visited a temple, and became very interested. One of the reasons why he became interested, there is one thing that really helps us on this path that really makes things very, very clear in an endeavor like the one we are engaging in here. And that is when you become very ill. Very ill. When you're confronted with your own limitation of having to face disappearance. And then you might become friends with disappearing. But getting there might still be very difficult if you're ill. So he became very ill. He went on pilgrimage to look for a teacher. He had read a lot, studied a lot, and affirmation of understanding came very, very easily. Very easily. And of course, when we get affirmed, anyone likes to get affirmed here? Yeah. Oh, thank you. But I'm so humble. I really don't. Thank you. But anyway, until he came to Goso Hoen, and Goso Hoen. No, he did not affirm him. No affirmation here. And just like most human beings, Engo got mad and angry, and he took off, stomping out. And Gosen, as a goodbye kiss, yelled after him, "You will remember me when you get severely ill." Soon after, while spending time on Mount Kin, Engo got very ill again. And of course he remembered this wonderful goodbye kiss. "You will remember me when you get ill." Yes, I remember that person. He did not affirm me. So I should probably go back and look deeper into this. Eventually, Engo Kokugon became the successor to Goso Hoen. He returned to Sichuan 1102 to take care now of his mother. Guess why he had to take care of his mother?
She was ill.
She became severely ill. Illness runs through this life. And for Engo, it was a very different way of taking care of his mother, having known what illness really means. After she passed, he returned to the Buddhist studies and teaching mostly. He went to many temples and he gave lectures on 100 ancient cases that were commented by a person by the name of Seicho Juken. These lectures that basically had an introduction, the main case, and then a verse to it, we all know as the Blue Cliff Record, the Hikigan no Roku. He was honored by the emperor with a purple robe and received actually the name Engo. Engo had 16 Dharma heirs. 2 of them we should be aware of. One of them is Daiei Soko, who we know from the koan introspection that looks at just one, the word head, the wato, the central word of a koan. And the other one is Kukyu Joryu, whose name we chant every night in the Teidai Temple lineage. So, Daiei Soko was a student of Engo Kokugon. Engo had compiled this Hikigan. So, guess what Daiei Soko did with it? Yes, he collected all copies and even the wood blocks that were used to print it, to destroy it. Because his idea of koan practice was different. But some survived. That's why we have the Hikigan no Roku. So what's going on in this Enlightenment verse here? Awakening verse. Expressing the gist of their realization. The fragrance of the golden duck censer fades in the brocade curtains. This is how it's translated by Yuho Thomas Kirshner. A censer, C-E-N-S-E-R, is just a little incense burner. And this incense burner here was in the shape of a golden duck. So the first line we could also translate saying the incense in the golden duck incense burner fades beneath brocade curtains. Beautiful. Incense. Why do we use incense here? Long, long time ago, there were no clocks. And even nowadays in Zen monasteries, time is measured by the time it takes an incense stick to burn down. The short sticks, 30 minutes. The next sticks, 45. And then there are some that burn for hours. So timekeeping. But it's more than timekeeping. It's also modeling, showing us the manifestation of time. There is this one place that burns. From that place, the smoke comes, the ashes, and the stick disappears. A very nice metaphor or a depiction in real life how time works. All phenomena are like the smoke and like the smell. The fading incense is the vanishing of these phenomena. I don't know, has anyone studied the Japanese hiragana alphabet syllabary? There's one way of writing it. There's a poem that has all the syllables in it of those 50 sounds.
Iroha.
Yeah, iroha, nioedo. Everything. Iro is the same as shiki. Shiki is the same as rupa. Rupa is form, color. All things are ephemeral. All phenomena vanish. The fragrance arises. It pervades the space. And then it disappears. Now, this disappearing, there might be different reasons for the disappearance. One could be that our senses, once the newness has worn off, we don't smell it anymore. It doesn't have to be incense, you know. Nobody ever thinks when they leave the bathroom that they should have opened the window. We don't smell it. But also over time, fragrance just disappears. Yet, the interesting thing here is the brocade curtains. Have you ever had the experience of just spending the night at an open fire and then the next morning smell your clothes? So it does not fade as quickly as we think. Luxurious curtains made from brocade suggest, of course, this world which is adorned with, especially lately, gold. Neon signs in Times Square. And it's also a world that is distinct between phenomena. There's discrimination. It's beautiful, yeah, it is beautiful, but ultimately, as we know, empty. Nothing stays. The scent disappears. When it's gone, what is left over? That is the first line of this poem here, pointing to impermanence. Anicca, impermanence. Mujo in Japanese. Even Valentine's Day will be over. No smell will remain, and roses will be half price tomorrow. So this is the first line of this world that is full with fragrance, with gold, with the duck and the curtains. But what remains? The second line in the translation by Yuho Zenji is, singing to the sound of a flute, I am led home drunk. Another way to translate is to say, amid pipes and song, drunk, I am helped home. Of course, this carries over from the first line. The fragrance, sounds, sights, immersion in the world of these sounds and sights, creating emotion, stimulation, the 10,000 things. How could we not become intoxicated? Among those intoxicants, there's one that stands out, and that is habit forming in the truest sense. It is such an intoxicant that one becomes addicted to it. And which one is that?
Ego.
I, me, mine, separate identity. Someone who consumes all this beauty of the world, wants to hold on to it, and more and more and more. I mean, recently I have been thinking, we human beings, we are pretty dull in the end, pretty dull. When we find something in our lives that we use to fill a void that we need to have filled in some way, there is something that we like the taste of. So we eat it, and then suddenly, what happens to that taste? It fades. It's not special anymore. It's not special anymore. And eventually, what will we say? Well, we move on, right? We move on. Well, why doesn't that work with money? Look at the people who have so much money. It doesn't work. It doesn't work for them. They still need more. And then those who don't have as much look up to them and say, oh, I want to be as sick as they are. Not helpful. So these 10,000 things make us drunk. And it works for a certain amount of time. But it's ultimately not only empty in the sense of the Buddhist shunyata, but it is also hollow, because there's nothing in it to fill it anymore, because we don't put ourselves fully into it anymore. The moment of the first experience is this fulfillment that pushes all that self away. And that's just a wonderful thing. And we'd like to repeat it. But with every repetition, it wears off, because there is an expectation, a self that fills this openness, that actually allows for this fulfillment. Now, we could think in two dimensions and say, yeah, I'm led home drunk. Here we have the teachings of the Buddha, who will bring me back home. But that would be two-dimensional thinking. We as Zen students and practitioners will not be content with thinking that way, or stopping to inquire at such a level where there is still this dualist idea that there is a specific home we have to be led to, drunk or not. From the Zen point of view, home, of course, is not a specific place somewhere else we have to be led to, but it is, in this case, what is it? The very drunkenness, the very intoxication, the very song we are singing to those flutes while we are drunk. That's when we forget about ourselves. We realize our home, right then and there. There's no place to get lost. The next line. The deepest refinement of the youth. Also translated as a youthful episode of passion and elegance. We all know this youthful passion, all of us, as we come to this practice in the beginning, like the youthful passion we have with every experience that is new, that is fresh, that lets that self fall away. From the passion, it turns into restless seeking mind, of grasping again, of smelling again the incense that has been blown out of the room by the wind moving through the open windows. This seeking mind, chasing the beauty we spoke about. Even more so dangerous, chasing meaning, awakening. And then we learn that this practice says we have to exhaust all of that. Be exhausting this search by searching everywhere. We have to look everywhere. And we won't find anything. We search everywhere. And as we search and forget about ourselves, the searching itself becomes our encounter with life as it is. Striving, longing, is okay. There is nothing more beautiful than to listen to some music that has that little sting in it. Really beautiful. You just imagine a piece, a song, a sound that does it for you. Just now, just how beautifully painful. We need that too. And here this leads into the fourth line, which in the translation by Yuho-san is, both lines are, the deepest refinement of the youth is for the lover alone to know. If you just translate the characters, it says only the beautiful one, which means is a synonym to only the lover is allowed to know. So a youthful episode of passionate elegance. Only the beautiful one, only the lover is permitted to know. Who is the lover? We all ought to be. We all ought to be the lover of this world, of this life. Really, directly, in our true self, in this original nature of encountering life, there is this intimate wisdom that is always there before any thought arises. This is Valentine's Day. Everything we encounter ought to be our Valentine. It is our life. And we can choose to relate to it with that passion of a lover of life. It's a beautiful verse that Engo wrote here. There is a reference in here, actually, that goes to another poem in this compendium of the 5 lamps, the Kaimoto. There is a reference that says that this poem was inspired by a verse that Engo heard from his teacher, Goso Hoen. They were going to visit a government official, Goso and Engo. And the government official asked Goso to characterize the Zen school in the form of a poem. And Goso said that here's a poem that will give you an inkling of what Zen is about. And this poem is spoken from the point of view of a young woman who is in love with somebody who she cannot socially meet with because it is improper. I try to express my feelings, but I am not able. Here in this back chamber, I convey my sadness by repeatedly calling my little maid Jade for no other reason than to have my lover hear my voice. Knowing that he's out there where she can't get to. Hoping for the lover to be near the residence. Little Jade, little Jade, she cries out. For no other purpose than to let her lover hear her voice and be heard. Oh, wonderful. It's carried over here into this Enlightenment poem by Engo Kokugo. The world of form is exquisite, but fleeting. Immersion in the experience of this splendor eventually exhausts itself. Seeking does transform into direct realization and actualization. Awakening is intimate, unspeakable, unexplainable, but it can be lived, and it must be lived. Otherwise, it's just words. This is what Engo talks about. Now, of course, Engo is also somebody who is in our lineage. So we must be in the Rinzai school, right? Can we relate this to something that we hear about in the Rinzai Roku? Give it a few seconds of thought. Anyone? Okay, fine. In Rinzai Zen, we often speak about guest and host. Guest and host. One of the most confusing things that we can read about in the Rinzai Roku. What does it mean? What does it mean? Joshu Roshi, my ordination teacher, spoke about guest and host quite a lot. But it's not just the dichotomy of guest and host, of this and that. But there are different ways how it can present itself. Guest and host is hinju. Hinju. There are two very distinct ways for guest and host to appear. One of them is hinju bunri. Bunri means apart. Guest and host are apart. And then the other one is hinju ittai. Guest and host are one. Often it is taught that guest means circumstances. Circumstances. Going back to the 4 positions of Rinzai, if you really want to look at something like that. So it's circumstances, it's the conditional thing. And host is the mind that sees through those conditions. That is how it's often explained. That relates to those circumstances from a different point of emanation, let's say. So I've been speaking a lot off and on about content and function, and I mentioned that before too. Here in Zen, we study the function that makes all of this here, ourselves, and even this endeavor happening. And there's the content that is apparently created by that function, or that is an expression of that function. So guest, I could also say, is the content. And host is the function. Hinju bunri, being apart, that there's a separation between content and function. Just by the statement itself. Content and function. There are 2 different kinds of aspects. So when we sit here and we do Zazen, thought, for example, thought is a function that creates content. And how often do we get consumed by the content that the function of thought creates? Sometimes I say, look at it from the point of view as if you were investigating how a television set works. While mostly one sits in front of it and gets sucked into the programming. Let's look at how does it work? How does this content arrive here? How does it become consumable for us? How does all of this come into existence? How does it work? That is the real, but some of the content is very, very convincing. Binge watching. Binge thinking should be a term. There's another word for it. Zazen. At times, until we get to that moment, let me look at the workings of it and not be pulled in by the reruns. So, when content is in charge, then the content consumes us. That's the guest. When the host is manifest and is in charge, then it sees the function and how the content is being generated. Now one could think again, or surmise, or assume, or even hope. That's it. No, it's still dual. Still dual. Then actualization begins at the moment where Hinju Ittai, where host and guest become one, where there is no difference between the functioning and the content. This is where the life of a spiritual adult begins. This is where true love, the true lover of life, embraces whatever it may be. And that is only possible when we reconnect, when we realize that we have always been connected with that fire of passion, that spark of life that we all carry. Zen is not an academic undertaking. A pure refinement. No. Going back to the incense, we must live our life almost like the incense stick burns. Almost. The only difference would be that we must burn so hot and live so passionately that no ashes are left behind. Passion is good. Please bring this passion of being alive to this inquiry and take from it that this passion can inform our actions, our manifestation, wherever, whenever. And that's when we become authentic human beings. So I will ask you, sitting here, representing, I signed a contract with each of your lives. And from the point of view of your life, I will ask you in conclusion once again, Will you please be my Valentine?
Yes.
Hi.
You don't have to say